The living room, where the family meets to discuss issues, any issue which may be bothering one of the family members. That's what we do each and every Tuesday on WAC 90.1 FM with Ricardo Mitchell and DJ Aaron 868. We have casual conversations on serious topics, from sports to culture, mental health to economics, relationships to life lessons. Join us each and every Tuesday from 7 to 8 p.m. on WAC 90.1 FM. The Living Room, casual conversations on serious topics.
It is now 6 p.m. here in Trinidad and Tobago. I don't know what time it is where you are, but I'm glad to know you're locked on to the true nation station, WACK 9.1 FM, where we are
culture crazy.
First and foremost, let's kick this off as we always do, all right? Must give thanks and praises to the Almighty for granting us the gift of life and seeing another day. No matter what time of day it is, you must always
give thanks.
Secondly, we must say thank you to those that went before us, and we are not just talking about our ancestors, the original inhabitants of Trinidad and Tobago, because we all know, accept, reiterate, and say it with the chest that Columbus slide, but also to our brother in music, Tony Prescott, where the P this week stands for
Perks, right?
Perks?
Perks, yeah, the perks of the work. The only reason we have any kind of perks with this labor business is because people stand up and fight for us to have benefits and conditions and that type of thing. So
thanks to those that fought for us.
And still fighting.
Okay, have plenty of work to be done still, right? This week we are continuing to go farther with fathers. Fatherhood, yeah. Wow. I have a real interesting question to ask when all the guests come. So before we get enter the guests and bring in Vorish, West Indies win Sunday, very unconvincing against the United States of America. Very unconvincing. I am not pleased. I am not pleased.
Beat in front of Iran.
I am still not pleased. I'm stressing it.
But it don't take much to please you, so I'm a little disappointed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All they need to do is bring out a boneless goat roti and I'm happy.
Simple, man.
Simple. With that being said, you are locked onto the True Nation station. This is DJ Aaron 868. I remind you that culture is my code, alongside my bro with no fro,
Ricardo Mitchell, the social stage and the global stage.
All right, so let's head into Vorish to bring us in, but to bring our guests in to the living room. We are joined again, as I said, by what did it call a group of fathers?
Dads. I mean, yeah, it's not a fancy name for that, like a murder of crows and a spot of whales. No, it's just group of dads.
Yeah. Group of dads. We'll take that. Right, so we are joined again by, and I'll go in order how they are on the screen, by Shaun. And new to the panel this week is no stranger to the living room, Mr. Brendan James.
Double salute, man.
Double salute, all right. You know Shaun from last week. Zoom, I want to say Zoom, yes. Brendan is...
You can say Zoom.
I can say Zoom. No, but I had to introduce you properly first. Zoom is an adopted dad, right? Kiegs, who was with us last week with his sweet voice, and Franz, the resident strongman.
I don't know why he's trying to make me out like that all the time, But
I tell you, the man have a picture you bareback still as his phone screen saver.
That's how I realized that when I went to look for Franz on the socials, I was like, okay, yeah, there's the correct one.
Not here to talk about that.
Yeah.
Right, we are continuing to go farther with fathers. Right?
Yeah.
And after last week's show, I got some follow-up questions from a contributor at my workplace, and I want to thank her very much for putting those questions forward. Right? So we're going to ask the questions to our guests. And before we go any further, this is a real quick one, fellas. This is the first time we're ever going to ask this. How are you, but an abridged version? Because we have a full room tonight, so we want to keep it as tight as possible. So how are you, fellas?
3 holiday today. I taking it. No Monday blues.
I like that.
Yeah, I cool, well rested, and yeah, ready to enjoy the holiday.
It's how Kiegs' voice is always in our bass, you know? Always.
Like, nah, that's not true. That's not true.
Man could do voiceover for chocolate milk, you know. Yeah, but I grate like coconut and sugar cake right now, to be honest with you. Can't complain.
I'll accept that. You know, we haven't gotten something like that in a while, so I'll accept that.
You know, not only that too, I need sister Iona, so still I'm thought something a little cultural. Hey, Tobago really are nice people and nice food, but
Tobago nice.
Yeah,
Tobago is nice. Zoom.
Well, boy, things are actually pretty good. I would say semi-rested and down the rabbit hole. On a little project I'm working on for work this morning. I wake up with it on my mind. So I sat down behind the computer this morning. But good, semi-good and down the rabbit hole. That is how it is go.
All right, Franz.
I'm good. Better than I was the last couple of days, honestly. I mean, you all know what I go through now and then. So the last couple of days I was a little edgy, little wired, but good today.
Nice.
Thank God for small mercies, man.
Correct.
Mr. Williams, how fare thee?
I cool or no? I cool. Had a doctor's appointment yesterday, so yeah, that's good. Good. I want to start off again by saying, as Ricardo said before we started recording, happy belated Father's Day, fellas. And also to the men who are not biological fathers but play a fatherhood role in children's lives, happy belated Father's Day to them as well. Right? Now, the first one is a tough one, off the bat. What would make a man choose not to be involved in the child's life? In his child's life, to be specific.
Who is starting with you? You're picking somebody or somebody else? Okay.
Or they just run in and bat?
I'll do the Chris Gale here. I'll take first knock. That's really a tough one, but you come out like Wakarinus, somewhere else swing on the pitch anyway. But I think a lot of it has to do with some of it has to do with some level of spiritual grounding. And I say that to say there's a level of strength that you must have in some situations, a level of strength, and depending on the relationship you may have with the mother of the child, depending on certain comments that may be passing around, depending on your financial situation and how you go about providing for and the relationship you have with your child, there's some level of disappointment that you may be facing, you know. Where there's a disappointment in terms of the relationship you have with the mom, and that boils down to, you know, the relationship you have with the child. There's a level of disappointment that you may be facing as a parent, as a father, you know, and you know there's always the comments of, you know, he's a good for nothing, you're not doing anything. Those kind of things you have to dig deep to watch in the face. And I'm not saying that the child is a disappointment or anything, but the relationship and things you may be doing for your child may be disappointing. And to face that disappointment every day, not knowing when the answer may come. You know, sometimes you may run from that situation just to not have to deal with it every day. So that's one of the things that's one of the angles I look at it from.
I like that angles.
Well, I'm glad that Shaun covered that side. I would say, and a lot of scenarios too, it's just uncertainty too. A lot of first-time fathers, you're not sure what it's about, you know, what is expected of you. You for your own self, you're not sure if you up to the task. And, naturally we tend to just fear things that we do clearly understand. And not everybody have the support around them or the examples around them for them to get the information, for them to go for the guidance and whatnot. And a lot of the time, people mind to just defeat them. So in cases where you're really just afraid, where's the task at hand? You don't want to let go of the life that you might have right now, which might just be, well, here, I don't have a part on a step. I could make moves wherever, whenever I want. And in your head, you're just seeing this fatherhood, you're seeing this child in your life here now as just something that's going to derail your plan or what you are going for.
Hard facts. Hard facts.
Yeah, fine.
Well, I understand what these two guys saying about some men mightn't feel like they're up for the task and so they step out of the role entirely. I mean, if you want to take it, I have no experience with that, although you could look at it from the angle of, you all have spoken about what I try to do on this show a couple times. So I try to actively take myself out of everybody's life as I try to shuffle myself off this mortal coil. And the reason for that was, and this might be why some fathers decide not to be part of their kids' lives, is they feel like the child is better off without them around, which that one I can understand. However, if that's the excuse you have in your head, like the kid is better off, and so you just remove yourself from the child's life, and then you go on to just, live a good life, then you're lying to yourself. So I can and cannot understand why anybody, any parent, father or mother would want to remove themselves from a child's life if they are, let's say, within their right mind. So I really, other than you think it's a sort of altruistic choice, let's say, they're better off without you because you just actively making this child's life worse with your involvement, whether it's because the relationship with the child is incredibly dysfunctional, relationship with the child's mother is incredibly dysfunctional, then I could understand that. But if you just don't want responsibility, or the relationship with the child's mother is dysfunctional, but there's still room for you there with the child, I genuinely can't understand it. But as I said, I try to make a very permanent removal of myself from my child and everybody else's life. So take that as you will.
Listen, my views on this is sometimes men may not like who they are around their wives or girlfriends in a relationship that may have broken down. So they don't like the person they are around that person. And maybe that toxicity may be extending into their life and into their health. And maybe they think moving away from that person and the child might be, good for their own headspace, mental health, and their own lives. But I also think that is maybe a short-term thing, and I think what you're sacrificing in the long term, I'm not sure if the cost is worth it. But sometimes is the situation of, hey, I just don't want to deal with that, so better just stay away, pull myself back. But I'm not sure if that might really be the solution.
I could totally agree with that one. A short-term something, because if you can't pour from an empty cup, as they say. So if you need to take time away from your child, your family, just to refill your cup to then be able to fill the child's cup, then I could get on board with that type of thinking. But to say is a permanent vacation from fatherhood, like, what, this is now what I sign up for, I'm out permanently, I genuinely don't understand how anybody could do that. But I can only walk in my own shoes.
I agree with all the positions, and the center around, for me, a keyword: insecurity. And the reason I say insecurity is because parenting is a lifelong commitment to sacrifice and expectation fulfillment, whether it's yours, the community around you, or the child's. And a lot of men did not sign up for that when they was looking for a beat. A lot of men did not sign up for that. Even if in a relationship, sometimes they did not sign up for that yet. Right? So what you have is a situation that has been presented to you where, as a man, even if you were parentless prior, now you have to start figuring things out. And being thrust sometimes, even though you might have, you're going in, everybody knows it's not like you slip and fall and end up in the matrix and 9 months later a baby come out. It's a decision you made to do something that resulted in a baby. But what happens is when you end up confronted with a situation, you are shown firsthand, frequently and repeatedly, how much you still have to do, how much you still have to learn, how much you still have to grow, how much you still have to figure out. And to be confronted by a complete and repeated revelation of how, even if it's temporarily inadequate you are. Most men say, I'm not going through this. I didn't sign up for that. This my whole life had to change here. Look how much I had to do. Look, me even have there's a brethren car I borrowed to pass and check that girl, and now you telling me I had to start to organize school runs? The reality of this is how much I have to grow scares a lot of men off. Some people look at it as irresponsibility, but as Shaun say, depending on your grounding, they might face that responsibility a little differently to somebody who do have it, right? But being shown of how much you have to do compared to where you are is a very intimidating thing. And as men, we all know how much that insecurity, especially when somebody rubbing our face in it, that will erode a man. And some men is just opt out. But for me, it is rooted in insecurity. Either I am not good enough, I have way too much to do in too little time, I didn't sign up for this, or worse yet too, now me and she and that. I've seen a lot of men only activate as men when fatherhood really kick in. Because all the time you might have been fairly successful, but when your metrics for success change because now they involve our entire life. I've seen men step up and become different versions of themselves because they are fathers. I have men who say they never really feel love until they hold a child. But I have men who didn't realize how they would have feel about parenting until they became one. Right? So until you know for a fact that, hey, I could do this, or as a community, we could do this, or we could figure it out. If you don't have that mindset, it's way easier to say, nah, I good. Aaron, you present the question though, so I'm curious as to what your thoughts were.
They have an age-old saying that only when you become a father, sometimes it's really grow up. And sometimes you can't force somebody to grow up. Even fatherhood doesn't make some people grow up. It may make you turn into Usain Bolt and run. But for me, in terms of this, it has a lot to do, as sure, everybody touched on specific factors as to why. And I'm not going to repeat everybody's answers. But what I would say is that sometimes the burden is too heavy for some to carry. And the fight or flight response kicks in and it's just fly. And for me, that's what it is. If the burden is too much, sometimes it's just fly. It's not right.
It have freeze too, eh?
Well, yeah, true. And our next F. But it, I don't know. For me, it's tough. It's a tough one because on Sunday morning, I went and spent some time with my dad. Right? We went by a bar on Superior Street. Mm-hmm. And upon walking into the bar, 3 friends of mine saw my dad and I. They didn't tell my dad anything. And they told me Happy Father's Day. And I was like, well, what are they telling me Happy Father's Day for? Is not father? Look, my dad there, tell him that. And I just walked off after that. And then my dad sat me down by the band. He was like, hey, you may not be a biological father, but you have God kids. You just actively go and spend time with other people's children and help there. You just go in boys' school, you don't have a child and you just help there. You just talk to them kids. So you may not be a father, but you are a father figure. So for some men, the call may not be, they didn't get the call yet as to, hey, this is your child. But they still want to actively be involved in children's lives because they understand the role that men play. But for others, they get the call, and as we just said, and agree on, flight, they might freeze, or they might choose to fight and work hard to build themselves up to become a better father to the child. The answer's right there from everybody who's sitting with us today. It's just which one is the right answer to that situation that you may be in or may occur. Now, what happened, Ricardo?
Dan, I have a point I'm going to raise here. I have to highlight it because this is a harsh reality. And I know there are a lot of mothers who are going to hear this and get very upset about it.
I didn't want to bring that up,
Shaun is a serious point.
I did not want to bring that up.
There are a lot of co-parenting challenges that only exist because the man has no problem being a father, you know. But you see, that man, not me and she, big man.
Yeah.
I am saying it in big. Plenty of all you, and I could get it through this, but plenty of all you in single motherhood positions because nobody questioning your mothering skills, you know. But you didn't exactly present girlfriend and wifely qualities.
They questioned your relationship skills.
Right. So the man have no problem minding the child or being in the child life, you know. But let me acknowledge that a lot of women weaponize having a child against the man or leverage having a child to try to keep the man. So plenty of it is not the man's fault. Yes, you have a responsibility, you know, but plenty of it is a response to conditions that were only inserted in the relationship position and not from the parenting position.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you bring that up, Ricardo, because that is a perfect segue to another question that was posed. Given, and I'm using the wrong term here, but given a toxic relationship between the parents of the child, what are ways for the father to actively be involved if it now becomes a co-parenting situation? Now, I know there's a tough one here because
everybody started to look around this
Well, all right. I don't know if some level of counseling needs to take place first because I'm still going back to the relationship, right? Co-parenting cannot happen if the parents aren't co-in, right? So if that co-in ain't happening, there's always going to be a clash. Always going to be a clash, right? So I think, first of all, some level of counseling, and that comes with maturity, right? That comes with, okay, cool. We have someone that we brought into this world that we are responsible for. So, okay, cool. Are we going to paint this negative narrative of what parents are for this child? Are we going to start our child up on that footing? Yes, you and I may not be able to get along, but we have a responsibility here. We have to raise an adult, someone who's going to give to the future, you know, of the country and parenting and all this kind of thing. So what seeds are we going to plant for this young child? So we sort out the relationship side of it and we figure out how we're going to navigate it. Is it you know, am I going to have, you know, that option of seeing my child? And if that's not an option, do I get my child a phone and do I, you know, have some utilized technology and maintain some kind of relationship with my child directly, so I don't necessarily have to go through her mother, you know, that kind of thing. We have to find smart ways of this co-parenting. So, example, events. We need to be up to date with events that are happening in our child's life, so that we can attend it. We need to be present in some way, even if it is from afar, but he or she is seeing us there. We actively find out, okay, cool. How's your day going? So is ways of navigating the human side of it and the technological side of it for me. We need to kind of find out that happy medium. If the human side isn't working, then we maintain some kind of connection with technology. And just be present. Just try to be present in some form or fashion.
Now, with the toxic relationships or the relationships that have broken down, we all understand, right? By this point in our lives, we all understand how difficult that space could be, and naturally for any one of us, you don't want to be in a zone where, from the time you step in, it's not going to get any better. Every interaction is just going to get worse, right? But like Shaun says, be present. And I think for fathers who face with that difficulty, you're going to have a lot of reminding yourself what you're trying to do or why you're trying to do it. Because you're going to very often be asking yourself, well, why are you going through this? Right? So you're going to have to keep reminding yourself your mission, right? If your mission here is to be in the child's life for whatever reason, your objective, your overall goal is, I want to be in the child's life. You're going to have to keep reminding yourself, right? Because it's going to take a whole lot of patience, right? And a whole lot of dealing with the toxic situations. But I think when adults, just be adults a little bit. We don't have to have any kind of relationship, The co-parenting, it would be great if it could be all of that Shaun talking about. Yeah, it would be nice if we could go to the therapy and work it out and all of that. But a lot of the time, we don't have the time, we don't have the money, we don't have the level of education to know that is required, right? But I've seen a lot of situations where, no, it didn't happen in the beginning because people needed to grow, people needed to learn, people just needed to live enough life to realize, what? There are more important things than me fighting down this person right through, right? And women, a lot of the times, don't leave enough space for the men to just have a little bit of involvement, right? Some of the times they can't create the space, but they just want to be a nuisance. You see that same leverage Ricardo was talking about? Yeah, they're making the most of that, right? But as the father in question, it have the creative ways to be there, right? Trying to be present, right? Just be involved. Sometimes it just takes small steps. You might be able to come around, but being able to be there financially if you could, it start off a journey where even the mother who have an issue with you, right? They don't, I'm my child, I don't hear on my child. After enough consistent behavior of you doing what you can, when you can, even that person who really have a kind of bad mind attitude towards you, it starts to break down and they realize, you know what? I am the problem here, right? So be there, do what you can, do as much as you can, show that you want to be there, right? And a lot of the time too, with women, we have to realize or remember, we're dealing with women. We're dealing with women, right? So yeah, you might want to be in the child life to a certain extent, but forcing it and pushing yourself in that space, especially where you and her not together anymore, and you don't have a place where you could demand her time and, her attention and her movements, and you want her to move on, exactly what it is you want whenever. No, you don't have the opportunity again, and they're not together, right? So understand your limitations, and you have to be creative. We have to be men. We have to find the solutions.
I think two of the things we could touch on for how to be involved as a co-parent, as a father, have already been touched on: maturity and a sense of duty. if you are mature enough and you are committed to your duty strongly enough, you'll find a way, regardless of the dysfunction of the relationship. Now, again, not something I could speak to personally because I'm married. But you don't get to, this year will be 13 years of marriage without going to some kind of counseling at some point, because two people, married or not, are individuals, and sometimes they grow in different ways, and you need to come together as a team because that's what you're meant to be as parents, and figure things out, whether it's how to parent or how to be together so you can parent. But if it happens that you all can't be together, you can still co-parent. I have friends that run the gamut of what I consider incredibly successful co-parenting, despite not being together. What could be considered sort of par for the course based on the dysfunction of the relationship in the first place and lingering resentments and whatnot between each other, they still do a decent enough job without bringing the kids into it, that kind of thing. And then I have friends, fathers and mothers, who are on the opposite sides of incredibly dysfunctional human beings that just make their co-parenting life absolute hell. So I can't speak to that. I don't want to focus on that part of it too much because yes, counseling, attention to duty, that kind of thing, but successful co-parenting, to me, based on what I see my successful friends doing, is maturity and a sense of duty, and your duty as a parent is to the child. If you all are no longer together, your duty is no longer to the other person, it is to the child or children. So if you have a strong enough sense of duty, you will find a way and do your best, regardless of the dysfunction of what used to be the relationship.
You know, there's a natural structure to how we articulate any point. You know, there's on one side, there's I want to try to see if we could have a relationship in terms of for the benefit of the child, which may require let's see if we could do the counseling, let's see if we could figure out how we could get this done. And if that doesn't work, okay, so we take another step of, all right, so let's decide, okay, we can't agree, right? So I kind of see these things as if it is we having an argument, there's a lot of energy that is coming out of me into trying to solve an issue. And it's the same for my significant other. And if that happening 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 times, and you're realizing like you're not going anywhere, then we had to set up some sort of rules of engagement. Okay, here's what, let's agree that we cannot agree. And okay, let's see if we could set things up in a way where we could, on the things we could agree on, that this is how we intend to operate. But you must be willing, there must be willing partners in that, right? So you must be willing to understand what the problem is. And sometimes I think that people don't really understand what the role and how important a father is for a child's development in terms of their overall holistic development. And if it is you don't understand or you're not seeing the point of that, just do the research. I mean, it's there, it's available, it's online, it's there. You talk to the best child psychologists, you talk to people who grew up in single parent homes. Not that they're successful, to do well, nothing's wrong with that, but what the stabilizing force of a father in a child's life means, you know. So there's a lot out there to kind of help try to convince the both parties that, listen, we need to figure things out in a particular way, because you don't want that part, that last part of this destructive relationship. If love is really what it's about for that child, I don't think that should be a goal in terms of what you're doing. You may not see it as that as being the goal, or you may not see it as a long-term outcome, but let's say about some dollar that, listen, that is where it could head, unless you have some sort of miraculous intervention in between there in the child's life or in the parent's life. So that's how I kind of structure it in my mind, in terms of you want to make sure you do all those things before it end up in a situation where you don't like the outcome.
Just if I could just jump back in there, guys, sorry. You know, like, listen to everybody's talking there. You know, there's a phrase or term that's bandied around, being comfortable being uncomfortable. This is going to be, from all, everything, we could see that this could be a very uncomfortable situation. But for, when, as you say, eyes on the prize, what you're really here for, you need to get comfortable in a very uncomfortable situation to see, to see what you want in fruition. So that, I hear everybody talking and I'm saying that's definitely a mindset you have to have as that father in the situation. Yeah, so I just wanted to just chime in there.
I think one of the main things you also have to accept from early is that your situation is not going to be perfect. So comparing your parenting situation to what you may be seeing with your peers is not going to be a wise idea if you know you are in a co-parenting situation. So if you know that's what you're in, you have to firstly accept that's what you're in. Don't think that, well, you could have hope that it might change, but you need to accept the current state.
And I feel right there, Aaron, we could also acknowledge the fact that for a lot of people who are in relationships and who are married, they still don't have the perfect situation either.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely not.
Yeah, parenting can be extremely difficult for two people who have the best of intentions and all the love in the world for each other, and they're still just having a hard time figuring it out.
Facts.
And people tend to, as you say, Aaron, kind of compare themselves to other people's relationships without actually knowing what that relationship is going through. So you see, if you see them out in social situations or even worse, pictures on Instagram, which is not reality. You have no idea what these people either are going through or have gone through to get to where they are. So actually talking to people, one of the things, I think a question I was asked in the last segment that I didn't get to answer properly because of the connectivity issues was, what's one of the favorite things about being a father? And one of them for me is talking to friends of mine that grew up with from childhood or teenagehood who were proper hellions, discussing being mature, proper fathers with them and talking about the struggles that each faces with either their wife, their girlfriend, their son, their daughter, and realizing that other people are going through the same thing. That helps when because if people can insulate themselves and think that they're the only ones going through it because of the image that other people portray, but having somebody to talk to that are going through something similar, it helps a lot. So comparing yourself is not good. Comparison is a thief of joy, but actually talking to your peers about what they're going through is really helpful in every factor of parenthood, fatherhood.
Thanks for that, Franz. I was trying to remember. I know there was a saying or analogy with comparison. Thanks for that, Franz.
I think that was Winston Churchill, but I don't remember.
Don't quote you on that.
Don't quote me on the quote. The quote legit, but the person it came from, I'm not sure. Google it.
It could have been Tupac, Abraham Lincoln, or Mahatma Gandhi as well.
It was probably Abraham Lincoln. Yeah.
One of the big ones.
One of the big memes.
Or it could have been Georgie who just be saying that on the coffee. You never know.
Yeah. There's a really see that comparison point. I love it because you know what is I see as dangerous inside of there is when you're comparing, but you don't know you're comparing. Mm-hmm. And it's there in the back of your subconscious and you can't recognize it for what it is. Thank God for therapy. Yeah? I'm not be afraid to say that I do it. And my therapist has helped me understand that I have, like, for certain things I would be comparing, but I don't draw the parallel between my thoughts and the comparison, which in itself could be very detrimental. But when you start seeing it, you start operating differently.
And it was apparently Theodore Roosevelt.
I knew it was somebody. It had to be somebody.
Yeah, one of the big dogs.
I thought it was Georgie. Yes, wait.
Just to jump on that point that Zoom was making there, and this is sort of a little segue, a little tangent, but a lot of people view therapy as going to talk about feelings and that kind of thing, and that's why they might shy away from it, because Big Ben don't need to talk about feelings, but a lot of it is actually just a change of perspective and change the way you look at things, because you are too close to something to really see it. As another saying goes, and don't quote me on who quoted it, but you're missing the forest for the trees. Because you're too close. And a therapist helps you zoom out and make the connections like he was talking about. What in the background is actually feeding the thoughts that you're then feeding back to yourself. And so if nothing else, therapy has helped me change the way I think about certain things and help get to know myself better so that I can be better for everybody around me. So that's a little segue about the usefulness of therapy.
But I'm not going to say, Franz, I think just to beef up that point, the fact that when we were younger and we looking at movies, and anytime somebody go to a therapist, they say now on the long couch, and the therapist would have the question, so how does that make you feel? I think that is what started the misconception for a lot of us as to what therapy really is. And I know before Ricardo, we would have done an episode some time ago debunking the myths of therapy. Right? So we have been doing our work inside the living room to normalize the conversation of mental health and also normalize the conversation that therapy is okay. And these conversations that we are having here with these gentlemen are trying to normalize that as men, we also come and sit down and talk about something beside football.
There's something about co-parenting that I desperately need our listeners to understand. And even if it's not for you, you could probably take it and share it with somebody that you know it might benefit. But we are not acknowledging time as a factor in co-parenting. And I don't mean time in terms of the hour or two you might get to spend with them or the visitation and that type of thing. I'm talking about the fact that your kids are going to grow up and they are going to see you for who you are and what you've done to manipulate the relationship they have had with their other parent. Your children are going to figure you out. There will be mommy child and daddy child. And when they hit their teens, when they hit early adulthood, and you don't have the control over their decision-making process and their resources that you once had, they are going to see you. And while you might have won the earlier rounds in this battle with the parent, you will lose your child to your hubris. Your child will realize that you deliberately manipulated how they felt about their other parent. And you will lose the adult having won the child. I am warning you from a spiritual, psychological, social, and emotional place that you will lose in the long run when you do this. Because you would have raised your child on a foundation that they will believe is mistrust, outright deceit, negligence, and withholding. And the adult will deal with you. It has been a long time I haven't gotten this passionate in a delivery. But I'm telling you, you are not acknowledging time. Your child will grow up and they will take you to task for what you've done. That is my warning.
The age-old but saying, you may win the battle, but you lose the war. Right?
And then they will spend as much time as is available to them trying to recover what you withheld from them in the early years. Families that don't have a present father, the child is more likely to stop educational advancement sooner than in a two-parent home. The child is more susceptible, in the absence of a father, to pedophilia and child sexual abuse. The child, particularly males, are more likely to be incarcerated in the absence of a father. There are actual significant social consequences to denying your child access to his father.
Increased drug use and increased likelihood of committing suicide.
Thank you very much.
And drugs is not just marijuana and all the other things like that. Drugs is also alcohol, increased substance usage.
Substance abuse. Good shout.
Listen, while you think you're doing the father something, it's the child you're endangering. So I know we're perilously close.
Yeah.
Right? So this is a quick close off and wrap up here to answer the last question, which I believe is an important question too. Right? Why would someone opt into fatherhood?
The question which was sent out was, why do some men deliberately choose fatherhood?
Yeah. So on that note, we could make a
final wrongs and say final goodbyes as well.
So I have this mentality from since I would say 2018 of what you're going to do about it. All right? So you're kind of observing all the things that happen around you. A lot of the things that happen around us, we can't do nothing about, right? Because they don't have the power to do anything. I mean, if we had the power, we snap the fingers, right? The Thanos, right? But we can't. We can't do anything. So what are you going to do? So, and I've taken it for as far as I could go. And we never had kids, right? And I'm like, okay, look at what is happening around. Look at what's happening, like just in my area, right? Young guy, I wouldn't get into details. Young guy from a good home, decide he and his friends get caught up in the wrong type of crowd, decide to hold up a security company, armored security company, as they're carrying money out of a particular establishment in Trinidad and Tobago. Right? Not just a few houses away from you. You know? These things happening. So what are you going to do? What are you going to do about it? So for me, it was, okay. And then the community that I grew up in, a lot of my friends, right, were adopted, a lot of them, right? And they do well. I mean, all of them doing well. Some are university professors, some working out in Trinidad and Tobago, some in the States, some all over. So I decided, okay, I'm going to take this step deliberately. I made the choice. I'm going to try. And I went in with my eyes open, no novelty and, there's a nice thing you do and stuff like that. I just know that, hey, as the Buddhists say, children is suffering, right? Not necessarily from the point of view but suffering from the point of view of, hey, it's work, right? And out of the suffering you get the benefit. So, I made the choice with my eyes open. And even with my eyes open, I still feel like I get hit on the side of my head. It is not an easy thing at all. Especially where you're trying to create new structures around someone who didn't have structures, And good. Creating structures around someone who just entered into your life, So one of the things that I committed myself to is to use this opportunity to teach emotional intelligence, at least to Dante. So recently he had a episode where he got very upset, ranting and raving. And he did some things that he wasn't supposed to do. I very, very quietly listened to what he had to say, corrected him when I think he was going overboard. So when he finally calmed down, after about 15 minutes, I say, okay, come, let's have a seat. So he sits at the table, said, we're going to have a conversation about our behavior, which is something that we normally do. And he started to reflect, and that's something that I'm encouraging him to do. Difficult work, it took a lot to get him there. And he said to me that he said I was angry. I said, okay, well, why I was angry? He said because he was excited, and he was excited to do something. And then when he came with the excitement to do it and realized he couldn't do it because he had other things to do, other responsibilities, he moved from excitement to anger. And that is why he was angry, because he was excited. So I say, okay, all right, that is very good. I praise him for that. So then that's excellent that he has that insight. Say, okay, so what are we going to do about the anger? So how are we going to try and control the anger? Then we went through a couple of steps and things that he could do. So that is what I am trying to do. Like the lessons that I would have picked up the hard way and the long route is to try and translate that. And that is why I made the choice to be a father, because hopefully each one could teach one. Hopefully he will carry it on and teach other people. about that emotional regulation that I think is lacking with a lot of men in Trinidad and Tobago?
So I looked at this question from two different perspectives. So from my own, why did I deliberately choose to be a father is, well, first I didn't. Like, I actively did not want kids. In my late teens and early 20s, I thought kids were aggravating and selfish and small-minded, literally, and just they don't know what you have to go through. They're ungrateful. That's what used to go through my head. Kids are ungrateful, and I did not want children. And then in my late 20s, as I got together with my wife, we got married, and I sort of saw, I have three brothers, parents still married. So I saw what we had become as a family, and it was a beautiful thing. And I decided, you know what, I want to recreate this. I want a big family, so that other people could feel what I feel now with my family. And so we had our son, we had challenges. What people don't tell you going into trying to conceive a child is miscarriages are really common. And so we dealt with that. You only find out how common it is when you've had a miscarriage, and then everybody comes out and you know what, I had one too, and we had two, and it's like, well, why didn't you all prepare us for that? So small segue, miscarriages are really common. You have to want to have kids sometimes.
Yeah.
And then we had our son, and a few months into that, it's like, right, big family is not for me because this is already a lot. So we decided, well, I decided pretty early on, she eventually got on board, that one and done is our thing. So I chose to become a father so that I could recreate what my family had become with my own family. So that's one reason. The other way I looked at it was my parents were told they couldn't have kids. And then they had 4. So my father at 23, I think the maths is correct there, at 23, my father had a wife and 2 sons he could not expect. And he chose, again, maturity and sense of duty, cometh the moment, cometh the man. He chose to stay in that situation and raise 2 children that he was told by doctors his wife could not have. So one way is I chose to have a family because I wanted to recreate what my family had. My father chose to be a father out of a sense of duty, I imagine. And I mean, as it was mentioned here, some fellas say they never felt love before they hold their first child. I don't know what went through my father's mind. I can't speak for him, but that man chose to be a father after being told he would never be a father. So 2 ways I looked at it.
That's very deep.
I thought so too, yeah. When I finally thought about it, I was like, wow, this man made a hell of a life choice at 23, you know, man.
Kiegs?
For me, I was always going to be a father, right? From what was given to me, what was afforded to me in my own life, growing up as an only child, I had that great opportunity to see my mother close up and see my father really close up. So I always knew I wanted a family, and I always knew that regardless of the circumstances, I was going to be a father. And that mindset kind of set my life in motion. In being a stepfather as well, it was something that I did not hesitate with at all, right? Because I always wanted to be there and be that guide, be that provider, be that support, you know? So no matter how the situation was going to be, whether it was me having my own children, whether it was me being a stepfather, from a very young age, I was also very willing to adopt, because I just knew I wanted to be a parent. You know, how people just had all these different goals, your career, and what you want to do, you want to travel, you want to do all of these things. I didn't have any. I didn't have any, like, where I see myself in 5-10 years, what career path, all of these things. But all I knew I wanted was a family, right? And I knew I wanted to be a father. So for as long as, just because I had that example from my own father, right? And not just my father, my parents, I should say, and what I would have seen them sacrifice and give, right? Selflessly, I wanted to be able to do the same in my life. And that's really what had driven my decision to be a father.
Shaun?
Wow. Fellas, wow. That's my first contribution. Wow. Similar to Zoom and Franz, I felt like the generation before parents, and there's no criticism to them, and no criticism to them at all. I know that they did the best that they could do, but I always felt, being married now, being in a committed relationship, having children, and that kind of thing, I felt like there's certain things that we weren't told by the previous generation. Things that might have prepared us mentally, put us in a better standing to handle certain situations, right? And along with parenting, I also take mentoring very seriously, something that I've actively tried to take on, a role I've actively tried to take on. So as throughout my course of MC and that stuff, I've come across certain groups of younger children and that kind of thing. They've gravitated to me and in a lot of cases confided in me. And I along with the mentoring and parenting, I've told myself I'm prepared to be very naked with younger people, younger children, younger adults, and that kind of thing, or anyone who's coming to me for advice. I'm prepared to share my experiences because I think that it can teach you. As I always say, I'm a big advocate for life being one of the greatest teachers, if not the greatest teacher. And so I'm willing to share my experiences with younger people, anyone coming for advice. And so that's one of the main reasons, if not the main reason, I've chosen the role of being a father. And again, as I said before in the last episode, fatherhood speaks to relationship. And so it's about that active relationship in the choice that I've made as a father. Because as we've already said, you can be a parent, but not a father, because one speaks to role and one speaks to, that relationship. So, yeah, for me is all about that. That's the reason I chose that. I've taken this role and not taken it just for my children, but also for children who I would interact with. Be that as Aaron said, be that figure for other children, and also so there's that open door relationship that I tend to have, and hey, come to me. So that was my reason.
Some really, really powerful reasons, fellas. And again, I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us inside the second edition of Father with Fathers, doing Father with Fathers. I applaud the transparency, I applaud the honesty, and I applaud you, gentlemen, for the role that you are playing, not just in your children's lives, but in the lives of the younger generation coming forward. Because just as I posted on my IG reel over the weekend, we had to walk this journey, right? It's a long road we're walking, but we had to walk it if we want to do better, right? Ricardo, anything you want to say before we hand over to Mr. Desmond with the big band?
I'm grateful to God for having a community that we could call to have the difficult conversations, to have the rich, meaningful, soul-shaking conversations, because I'm not attacking you, I'm attacking the thing that is holding you back. So you could do one or two things. You could vex with me, or you could get out of your own way and save yourself some headache in the future.
Shape up, right? Or ship out.
I'm just saying, right? If we ain't going, we going. We have to do better than what is going on right now.
And when we say Cohen, we're not talking about Cohen Hamilton.
Yeah, although this is a real big school, though, I just say Hamilton is a big school. Right. Thank you guys for joining us. Thank you, listeners, for giving us some time. And for the people who are going to end up listening to us in a month, in a year, 10 years down the road, I have no clue where this work is going to reach, but I can guarantee you one thing. The world is already a better place for us having tried. So I just want to encourage everybody to do what you can, where you can, when you can, light the room you're in, because the hourglass is opaque. We don't know how much time remains. So whatever you're doing, be good and stay safe.
Closing it off real quick, Mr. Desmond's up next with the big band. This is your Shirley DJ Aaron 868. I remind you that culture is my code. And I tell you that love is the currency, so spend some today. Let somebody know you love them, please. Because without love, what are you really living for, right?
He likes.
All right, guys. We out.